said I'd be back, later today with more on the American Rescue Plan. So that's what I'm doing. However, I didn't put too much. I worked on it for a few hours. I'll tell you, I got to section 3031 before I kind of just got tired and decided I kind of want to do some other things with my day. But I'm, going to go ahead and go through what I've got here because I'm getting sleepy, and I might as well show you guys what I found. And oh my gosh, as you can see, like my notes are just, I've written down like, a lot, but at the same time, just trying to figure out how to do this in a efficient and effective manner. Excuse me. And I guess just to start off, it's good to note that a lot of it seems to be for like COVID protection, right? As you can see here, the very first section is subtitle A is agriculture, right? And so, oh boy, my notes: $4 billion to purchase and distribute food, to make grants and loans to small, mid-sized food processors and distributors, and for measures to protect workers from COVID-19. There's going to be a lot in here that's going to talk about, measures to protect workers from COVID-19. As you can see here, for some reason it's kind of highlighted these things in green. I guess that's because I typed in HR. Hold on, you know what? I kind of want to undo that because I don't want these things highlighted here. So let's just take away that space. That ought to do it. All right, text. Past house. So this is past the house already. Oh boy. Well, one thing of important notes, important to note maybe, is that they've actually taken quite a few bills that we've actually already gone over and placed them in this one, right? For instance, raising the federal minimum wage is included in the American Rescue Plan, as well as the Cobra coverage, insurance coverage. But the difference is when we initially went over the Cobra coverage bill, and that it's called like protecting like American workers or something like that. It was if you've paid 0% of your premium, then you will be counted as having paid the premium, right? It was 0% there. In the American Rescue Plan, though, it's 15%. So who knows? Who knows where this is going? But there may be some things in here that are going to keep the bill from passing because they've seemed to have included quite a bit, right? And as you can see, we kind of start off with $4 billion to buy food, right? And to distribute the food to individuals in need, right? And that's determined by the Secretary of Agriculture. That's who's determining it. So a lot of this is going to be stuff that's going to be determined by the Secretary of such departments, right? Secretary of Education, Secretary of stuff like this, everything like that. I guess these are all people who have been recently appointed or chosen by Biden after he was elected, or after he was, I guess, you could say he was elected, depending on where you sit on that, right? Anyway, he's sitting in the big chair right now. He's swiping the big pen right now. So, loans and grants for food chain resiliency. Yeah, I'm not sure what all that is. Oh, Yeah, another interesting little bit here. Animal surveillance, right? Apparently, there's a form or a mutation of COVID that has found its way into animals. This is stuff that I've heard out of China. I don't know how true it is. I don't know how true it is, but you can see it's just funding. Yeah, 300 million to monitor animals for SARS-CoV-2. 100 million funding, right? What is this? Sorry. To reduce overtime costs on inspections of small food suppliers and processors. Overtime costs, right? So they're going to reduce overtime costs by, I guess, they charge people for inspections. And so in order to reduce the costs of the overtime of these inspections, they're just going to pay the people who are doing the inspections. I don't know. But as you can see here, they mentioned 2021 through 2030 quite a bit. But most of it, I'd say, is 2021 through 2023 is what you're going to see in most of these things. Emergency care for rural healthcare. 500 million for grants to organizations to provide healthcare to rural areas. And yeah, as you can see here, increased telehealth capabilities. So they're definitely trying to increase the value of these telehealth companies that they've invested their money in. Let's see, section 1003. Oh, pandemic program administration funds. Oh yeah. I mean, 47,500,000 administrative expenses. Right? For necessary administrative expenses. That's literally, you're going to see a lot of that. Right? They're going to have lots of sections in here where at the end of it, it's like, now at the start of it, it's like, oh, we're going to appropriate this much money for this, to be used for this. And then at the end of that section, there'll be another amount of money for the administrative costs of it. Right? It's kind of insane. You can kind of tell how somebody can get very tired of covering such a thing. Let's see, 2,500,000 to audit, investigate, and oversee activities carried out with funds given to the Department of Agriculture related to COVID-19. Right, and that's small change. That's small change. They got farm loan assistance for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. Apparently, socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, excuse me, is referring to ranchers and farmers that find it difficult to get their product to market, which I don't know how. I mean, I've never farmed or anything like that, but I imagine it's not that difficult. But I suppose if you're like a small-time farmer, you're going up against these like big farm companies, I'm thinking Monsanto is one of them, then perhaps you will find it difficult because they'll just be, they'll have all the connections and you don't have the connections. And so I guess that's what they mean by socially disadvantaged. Right. So 1 billion, 10 million. Pathways to federal employment. That's section 1006. Okay, yeah. 666 to support and supplement research, education, and extension, as well as scholarships and programs that provide internships and pathways to federal employment at colleges and universities, institutions, Alaska Native institutions, Native Hawaiians. You'll see this a lot, where they kind of separate like Hawaii out and Alaska out, and like Puerto Rico, and I guess other territories of the United States. Right. there's a lot of that. Oh, but assistance based on past discrimination or bias, right? So to provide assistance to socially disadvantaged farmers, ranchers, or forest landowners that are former farm loan borrowers that suffered related adverse actions or past discrimination or bias as determined by the Secretary. Number 8, land acquisition. To establish pilot projects to provide technical and financial assistance to socially disadvantaged groups, including projects that focus on land acquisition, financial planning, technical assistance, and credit. I mean, I'll just leave it up to you, because I'm already pretty burnt out, and I haven't even gone through, I've probably just gone through a quarter of this bill, right? As you can tell by where this thing is. I've just gone through basically a quarter of it, and I'm, really questioning my life decisions here. Right? Where am I at? All right, section 1007. I literally wrote through like each section that I find is at least something of interest, right? And fortunately for me, there's a solid amount of sections that I don't necessarily find to be that interesting. All right, but section 1007, 800 million. Food for peace. Now, food for peace is something that's been going on since 1954. Right? And what food for peace is basically the United States, buying food and sending it overseas. So that's, foreign food aid that we're talking about there. Section 1011. 1,150,000,000 Food and Distribution Act of 2008. Right there, right? I can't. I'm having trouble with my handwriting just because I tried to squeeze like these words into one line. But you see that as the amount. Oh my gosh! For management oversight of the program. This is all just agriculture. All right. I'll write this down right. Food and Distribution Act. Food and Nutrition Act of 2008. My bad. Food and Nutrition Act of 2008. All right. Now that's just them looking for households that need supplemental nutrition. So I'm thinking this is like kind of food programs, which, I don't know. I don't. Where we at? Section 112, 1012, 25 million. Now you can tell if it's not in the billions, it may not necessarily be all that important, but also at the same time, they're not trying to. Because I definitely get the feeling that they're just trying to take this opportunity to give as much money as they can to like their friends elsewhere. In different departments all over the place. And you'll see that later on when we're talking about kind of just the arts and humanities, right? Because apparently funding arts and humanities is part of the COVID rescue plan. Yeah. So this is Section 10112 is 25 million to improve tech for the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008, right? Which kind of brings me to another summary of what a lot of this bill is about. A lot of this bill is about expanding programs that they've had in place for years. Some of the expansions are permanent in nature, where they actually go in and they amend the previous bill in order to permanently increase the amount of money that the program or the bill like appropriates for whatever. And we'll get into the whatever part, pretty soon enough. Section 1013. $1 billion, just an equal $1 billion for nutrition assistance. Nutrition assistance programs. Right? Now, apparently this is just for the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and American Samoa. Right? Like just those 3 places, $1 billion in food assistance. Right? No, they're amending this. Where did I get $1 billion from? Oh yeah, there it is. The $1 billion to remain available until 2027, and just 30 million of that $1 billion is going specifically to the Northern Mariana Islands for such assistance. Which, I mean, like heck, food at the grocery store, at least for me, is not all that expensive. But I guess I don't know what the populations of these places are, but I don't think the Northern Mariana Islands has a large population. In fact, you know what? I think that'd be an interesting thing for me to look up right now, wouldn't it? Let me just population of not northern Mariana Islands. Let's just take a look at this population. Okay. 56,882 people. Oh, but looks like the UN estimates a population of 57,000. So let's just round up. 58,000 people. $30 million. Let me grab my phone. Where's my phone? There. I hardly use my phone. I guess I could just Google it. Oh, here's my phone. But let's just let me just see how much. Do I have any battery? No, I don't have any battery. Look at me. Okay, let me look up. Excuse me. 30 million. Right, 30. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Divided by 58. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So, right, that's 30 million, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right? Divided by 58,000 is $517. Right. Now, I guess that's, only really enough to feed, that's maybe I want to say 1 month, but that's per individual, right? That's per individual. That's not per family, right? So you may be spending maybe that $500 a month for groceries, right? But I guess we're effectively going to feed them for a month, which, if they need it, they need it. 30 million in this bill is nothing. I need to charge my phone. That's off. I don't even use my phone anymore. Oh, excuse me. Let me see. Where was it? Okay, right. Section 1014. Commodity Supplemental Food Program. All right, it's just 37 million for the Agriculture and Consumer Protection Act of 1973. All right. For activities authorized by Section 4A of that act. So as you can see, they're really, leaning on acts that they've had been going for a while. right? Now, I really didn't do this in the most effective manner in terms of like noting everything and jotting everything down. But I mean, I tried to condense each of these sections into as little and as knowledgeable as I possibly can. And some sections I skipped entirely, right? But at the start of this, they put in a decent amount of stuff, so I needed to wade through all these things before I started to really get to things where I could condense it. And I mean, this is about as condensed as I was able to come up with these things, right? So section 2001, $128,554,800,000 to the Department of Education, right? Oh, right. This is the title to materials, equipment, and property purchased with funds shall be in a public agency, A2B. Right. So this is the part where they say public control of funds, right? Control of funds provided under this subsection and title to the materials. Now, title, that's another word for ownership. To materials, equipment, and property purchased with such funds shall be in a public agency. And a public agency shall administer such funds, materials, equipment, and property. Now, what it's referring to is A2B, right? That's little a, 2B, right? These are funds that go to students and teachers in non-public schools. So effectively what they're trying to say here is you buy any property, what this section is basically about here is so they told people they couldn't have their schools open. And so obviously the students lost the opportunity to learn anything because the school wasn't open. And because they need to make up that learning, the federal government here has decided that, okay, we told you to close down so that your students couldn't learn. But now that you're open, they need to catch up on their learning. And so we'll provide you with funds, right? But if you buy any property, equipment, or materials with that funds, then actually we own it, right? So we'll provide these private schools that we told to close down with money, but whatever they buy with this money is going to be property of the federal government. That's fucked up. And quite frankly, I don't think it's legal. And if a private school finds itself in the unfortunate position of the federal government trying to take ownership of the equipment, materials, or property, I certainly hope that they can go to court. And I mean, it would probably have to reach the Supreme Court, and that this would get shot out, just blown out of the water, because honestly, I don't see how that's legal. Where you say, we'll give you money to do something, right, in order to fix the problem that we somewhat created here. But whatever you buy with that money, we own. But of course, the other way around it is you take the money and you don't buy any materials or equipment or property, and therefore they don't own anything. Or, you take the money, and if your school is, teaching kids how to smoke weed, and all you do is you buy weed with the money, then you smoke all the weed, then the federal government owns nothing but smoke. There's nothing in here that says they need to be reimbursed. It's freaking ridiculous. They basically want to, own things now. They just want, you bought property with this money? We own it. You have to do what we tell you to do with it, or we'll give it to somebody else. We'll just take it and give it away. Section 202. Let's move on. Yeah. 39,584,570,000. Financial student aid and COVID protection. Emergency financial aid grants to students. Emergency financial aid grants to students. Financial aid grants under this section. And you're going to see a lot of this. A lot of this is going to be financial aid and COVID protection, right? But, how much does the COVID protection cost? Like rubber gloves, face masks, bandanas, not that much. So you can imagine most of this money is going to actually be going to financial student aid, which, wherever your stand says on that, that's on that. Mine is financial student aid. Kind of ends up being more like a debt trap, particularly like the student loan kind of program seems to be just kind of a debt trap where like the schools kind of inflate their prices, right? So like for instance, I went to the University of New Mexico. Now, if you were in state, right, if you were like a citizen of the state of New Mexico, then your tuition at that school was like $3,000 a semester. If you were out of state, your tuition was more like 15 to 20,000, right? So they really, over there trying to milk things. It was still like, a pretty good school for me to go to, but it cost a whole lot of money. I was just kind of making a lot of debt, and I was struggling getting through Calculus 3 because they only had so many Calculus 3 teachers. And, if they weren't like, if the teachers weren't engaging, then it was kind of hard to pay attention in class. But, it was like one teacher was just super boring. Well, that was physics. One teacher was super boring, but like he was easy, but like it was just hard to even like get engaged, kind of stay interested. Another teacher was, he was engaging and he kept your interest, but he was very difficult. So, physics was tough to pass. Like physics 1 was like tough to pass. But calculus 3, they had like, I had one teacher that I got all the time. And just because that's how the schedule thing worked out. And he reminds me of a friend I had in high school. But he was tough. He was hard. And I took his class like 3 times. And my advisor was like, "Oh, we'll find a way around it." And I was just like, "Man, I'm fucking dying over here, dude." All right. Section 2003. Maintenance of effort and maintenance of equity. Yeah, okay. What do I got here? State educational agencies may not reduce funding as a condition of receiving funds. You receive funds, you can't reduce your funding in education, right? So if a state receives funds in this section, they can't reduce the amount of funds that are given to a certain area, especially if that area is like a what's the word they use? It's like places where underserved, like not necessarily underserved areas, but like poor areas, right? Like high poverty school. That's what they say. Yeah. You can probably cut funding to the not so high poverty schools, but you can't cut funding to the high poverty schools, which, if you're receiving funds under this, then yeah, why are you cutting funding if you're going to receive funds here? Excuse me, I just had some pizza. Pretty good. Also kind of while I'm tired. Outlying areas. Section 2004. Here we are, right here. 850 million. Pocket change. It's almost $1 billion, but mostly pocket change when we're talking about this bill. Secretary of Education to grant awards. Now, he's just granting awards that kind of to outlying areas on the basis of their respective needs as determined by the secretary. So the secretary determines all this stuff. And that's just going to be a common theme throughout this whole thing. Secretaries are going to be determining what your needs are, if any. And so really really makes me think, politically speaking, that's where this stuff's going to head, right? If you've got like a Democrat or Republican as a secretary, then Democrat secretary is going to be aiming to grant most of the money to Democrat areas. Guys, a Republican, be looking to mostly grant stuff that's Republican, I guess, and depending on the individual, I suppose. Section 2006. Yeah, I didn't really care much for the Bureau of Indian Education because Section 2005 is pretty much the same thing as Section 2004, except it's just dealing in terms of like Indian lands, right? Indian education. And what's interesting is throughout this bill, they kind of switch between like Indians and tribal and Native American. And so in this section, I'm not sure if they're talking about Indians as in like from India, or if they mean like tribal Indians, like the Apaches. But I'm pretty sure they mean tribal Indians, right? And for tribal colleges and universities. Yes, that's kind of what I'm thinking they mean there. Of course, I suppose there at least were tribes in India at some point in time, but I'm guessing they're way beyond that. Meh. Right. Section 205. Oh, yeah. Same amount. I actually did write it in my notes. $850 million, Secretary of Education to grant awards, but just in terms of, Indians. Section 2006. $19,250,000. So this is definitely one of the smaller ones, but about as small as it's gotten in terms of amount is like 2,500,000. I think there may have been one instance where it was just like 800,000 or like 300,000, which I was like, wow, they must not care too much about that, or whoever it is that's requesting it must not be trying to pop up on the radar too much, I suppose. All right, so 19,250,000. This is section 206. Blah blah. Right, for the Kendall Demonstration Elementary School, Model Secondary School for the Deaf, and Gallaudet University to prevent COVID-19 exposure and financial student aid, tuition. Right, and that's the same thing, kind of section 2007. Right. Except it's 91,130,000, and that is to prevent COVID-19 and outreach about financial aid, impact payments, and tax benefits. So that's basically, what that's about is they want to reach out and let people know that they can take advantage of these things. So it's basically a program just to let people know, oh, you can get financial student aid, you can get like stimulus checks and stuff like this. Grants to students, which, that's that. This is that. Okay. Means tested tax benefits, right? Just letting them know about the tax benefits that they can claim and all that. And that's going to cost, 91,130,000. Yeah. Section 2008. Howard University. 35 million. Howard University. COVID-19. That's prevention, COVID-19 exposure, and financial aid. Section 2009. National Institute for the Deaf. Prevent COVID-19 and financial aid. That's 19,250,000 for that. Section 2010. My bad, 2010. 100 million. Research related to addressing learning loss and to share findings. Right? Research. Carry out research related to addressing learning loss caused by the coronavirus. And they love to spend money on researching problems rather than solving them. 2012, section 2012. 5 million. 5 million. Small. Office of Inspector General of Department of Education to prevent COVID-19 and expenses. Expenses for that. Hold on. I will be right back. There's a possum outside eating cat food. Oh boy. I tell you, those possums, they're some greedy motherfuckers. Clean up everything, put all the food out in all the cat kibbles in the world out there, and they'll eat it all. At one point, they're getting so fat that when you're trying to chase them off, they can't even run away. You're just like, how pathetic is this? I'd be able to kill you so easily if I was inclined. Which, funny enough, I have actually taken my gun out there. Like, I have had it. It's like, I'm not going to shoot this thing. Like, first off, I can't really do that in my neighborhood without, people getting upset. And secondly, I don't want to be dealing with a dead possum. Right? And thirdly, might as well let it, live long enough. You never know. With Biden president, I may be needing to eat one of those motherfuckers soon. Oh my gosh. That's a little running joke. Let me see here. Where were we? Research related to findings and share findings. Costs $100 million to share findings and do the research on learning loss. Okay, all right. Program administration of Department of Education to prevent COVID-19 plus salaries and expenses. That's section 211. All right. $15 million. Right, for the program administration within the Department of Education to prevent, prepare for, or respond to coronavirus domestically or internationally, and for the salaries and expenses necessary to implement this part. And these are small sections, but in the larger sections, they'll definitely have like a whole other, like at the end, at the start, they'll have the appropriations, and at the end, they'll have another amount for the expenses to carry it out. Right? I mean, it just kind of makes you think like this is definitely just conglomeration of a bunch of different things that people wrote. I know they have like one guy's name on it, but like they got everybody in the Democrat Party to write something. And I mean, I say everybody, they probably got Lisa Murkowski to do that too. Probably got some Republicans get some input in there too. But tons of people wrote different stuff because ain't no way one man did all this work by himself. Other than his staff, like nah. Which I don't know. It may be in this bill. I may have seen it in this bill, or it may have been in another bill. But it was something about allowing senators and congressmen to share employees, which seems kind of devious from the start, At the same time, it's like you guys have so much money, you're throwing millions and billions around. You can't hire more people. You got to share employees. Like, makes me think that, they hire these employees not for their work as employees, but rather, something else. Anyway, let's see. Section 2021. Oh yeah, I basically skipped all that stuff because it was. Oh wait, no, never mind. I skipped 2013 and then just go straight to 2021. Because 2013 is just like modification of revenue requirements for proprietary education, and it's just kind of amending the Higher Education Act of 1965 by like striking funds provided under this title and inserting federal funds that are dispersed or delivered to or on behalf of a student to be used to attend such institutions. So this seems to be just kind of, right, federal education assistance funds, just more financial aid kind of stuff. Don't really know what that has to do with COVID-19 stuff, but financial aid. Where was this? 2021. 135 million. States, arts agencies, and regional art agencies to prevent COVID-19. Right? Endowment for the arts. To support, prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. Prepare for, respond, and recover from the coronavirus. Right, recover from the coronavirus. Okay, they're both the same thing. But it's talking about just like 40% is going to states and 60% is going to organizations and programming in general, like operating expenses. And it's just kind of like, okay. And they do the same thing for the National Endowment for the Humanities. Hold on. The amount's different. No, the amount's not different. I just have it written down underneath the second one. I just had section 2022. Yeah, another 135 million for the state's humanities, councils, and organizations to prevent COVID-19. Prevent, prepare, respond to, recover. Prepare the coronavirus. Right, 135 million for that. Section 2023, 200 million to carry out library services and tech act. Technology, okay, yeah. Library Services and Technology Act. Right? Now, as you can see here, this is one where they've literally amended a part of the bill where they substitute 2 million for 680,000. So they used to get 680,000 for this, right? And this doesn't, really say anything about how the funds are supposed to be used in this section right here. It's just they're getting 2 million instead of 680,000. Right? They're getting 200,000 instead of 60,000. Right? I'm guessing that's just the amounts that need to be spent, because that seems to be kind of like in the 10% range. Right, so I'm guessing that's for like expenses and stuff, administrative costs and whatnot. So they've just permanently increased the amount of money that the Institute of Museum and Library Services is going to be getting. Right, 2024, 10 million. During and after COVID-19, ensure survival and continuing vitality of Native American languages. All right, so this is another one where they kind of amended a bill that was previously, right, Native American Programs Act of 1974, where they've kind of permanently increased the amount. And as you can see here, this is to ensure the survival and continuing vitality of Native American languages during and after the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 pandemic. So, even after the end of the emergency, this is still going to be going on. Raising the federal minimum wage. Now, we've gone over this in a previous stream, but they went ahead and just threw it in here under subtitle B as section 2101, and it hasn't really changed It hasn't changed at all as far as I can tell from when I went over it originally. But they just included it in here. And so we can go ahead and just skip past that and go to section 2102. Where's 2102? 2102, funding for Department of Labor Worker Protection activities. Now I've got here 150 million, prevent COVID-19. Prevent, prepare for, respond to COVID-19. That's what this is. All right, it's talking about 12,500,000 shall be for the Office of Inspector General. Carry out their inspections. Not less than 75 million for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. 10 million of which shall be for Susan Harwood training grants, and not less than 5 million shall be for enforcement activities related to the COVID-19 at high-risk workplaces, including healthcare, meat and poultry processing facilities, agricultural workplaces, and correctional facilities. Just including everybody in here. My goodness. What do we got next? Section 2103. Exposure to COVID-19 is an injury, and workers' compensation employed in federal service does not include teleworkers. No funds can be paid on claims made after September 30th, 2030. So be sure to get your COVID exposure claim in here. And yeah, this literally does say include a risk of exposure to the novel coronavirus. So even if you weren't exposed to the virus, but somebody in your workplace had it, in the work area, I guess, and you didn't even show up to work that day, but they told you that okay, no, the place is closed, you can't go to work, then you have since suffered an injury from exposure, and you are entitled to a workers' comp claim, is what they're saying. Once again, if you think I've read this wrong, by all means go in there and show me, but that's what I found. All right, now you shall be deemed to have an injury caused by exposure to it. All right, not that you contracted it, but a covered employee definitions. This is where we actually go into definitions, right? Include a risk of exposure. Risk of exposure. We all have the risk of exposure. So, everybody get your workers' comp claim in. Oh boy. And you have until September 30th, 2030 to do it. So solid 9 years? Right? Yeah. I mean, I was thinking maybe 8, but then I was like, no, September's kind of late in the year. So we're looking at 9 years. Get your shit in. Oh yeah, this does include disability compensation, medical services, and survivor benefits. Yeah. So go get your money. Section 2104. I'm going to skip through that. Diagnosis of COVID-19 is an injury. Covered employee includes employees ordered not to work by a local, state, or federal agency because of exposure or risk of exposure to one or more individuals diagnosed with COVID-19. So exposure or risk of exposure. So if you're exposed to these one or more individuals who are diagnosed with it, you can file a claim. This is basically the section. What this section is doing is it's referring kind of back to this section, in such that It's basically where like it goes into like it's basically saying that these people are able to do this. That's basically what it's saying. A employers are entitled to reimbursement of claims. So that's what this says, compensation. That your employer, after you filed your workers' comp claim, can get reimbursed for the claim by the federal government. So you know anybody who's planning on filing a claim, let them know that they can let their employer know that they can be compensated for it. So everybody on the bandwagon, I suppose. You know what I mean? Section 2201. Subtitle A of Title 20 of the Social Security Act is amended by adding at the end the following. Social Security Act is amended. 276 million provide services under programs to all adults. The amounts made available by this subsection may be used to provide services under programs described in Section 2042B for all adults. Right? So, I mean, I'm not about to go into the Social Security Act and find out what Section 2042B does. But if you're interested, you can go ahead and get your money worth there. I mean, I may end up having to do that in the future, just because but right now I'm just not curious. Like, after dredging through all this, yeah, I'm just, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to bed. I'm ready to go to bed. I was ready to go to bed like this afternoon after I'd spent like 6 hours on this thing. Which, 6 hours, that's not much. But like 6 hours of reading through a law where everything's kind of just repeating itself and it's just like huge amounts of money and sitting here and just deciphering kind of where they're going and then having to take breaks just to even think about like how am I going to even like express ideas about this, because when I first came across the education part where they were like private schools, that use this money to buy stuff, that stuff is going to be owned by the federal government. I went and did like a short little stream on that. But then later I remembered that like these are people told you had to close down in the first place, which made it even more messed up, right? Where it's like, you got to close down. And all right, we realized that because we told you to close down, that your students lost learning and they need to regain that learning. So we're willing to give you funds for those to help your students regain that learning, right? But anything you buy with the funds is property of the federal government. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, what the hell? Like, that's messed up. Like, that's messed up. I don't care who you are. If I told you that you couldn't, like, do something, and then you suffered an injury or somebody else suffered, like, an injury, like a loss of learning or something like that, and then it's like, okay, now I realize I kind of am the cause of this. Here, let me give you some money to go ahead and fix this. And you're like, oh, thank you. And you go and you buy, like, a computer to help, fix it, because you got to do, like, the summer, like, school kind of a thing, right? And then I show up and I'm like, oh, by the way, that's my computer. Like, that's messed up. That is messed up, right? And this was passed in the House. This passed the House with that provision in it. So, I guess just let private school know, if you send your kids to private school, like, yo, whatever you do not purchase materials, do not purchase equipment, and do not purchase property. You can buy anything else. You can pay of salaries. You can pay expenses, but you cannot, under any circumstances, purchase any material, any equipment, any property. So no pencils, no pens, no notebooks, no chalk, no dry erase boards, no computers, no programs. Maybe programs. No, I feel like that'd be material, right? Because you could, learning material. Sorry, textbooks don't like all you can really do is buy things that are going to be expendable next week. Something that's going to be absolutely worthless and used up before the federal government can get its grubby hands on it or tell you that you need to change the way you run your school in order to meet meet the requirements, or else they'll take your shit away that you bought with this. Like, it's just like, that's just all I can think of, right? Like, basically, somebody who enjoys weed, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, if I had ran a school and all I did was teach people how to smoke weed, and all we did was smoke weed the whole time, then I would take this money and be like, all right, we need to catch up on the learning, Fucking puff, puff, pass. And keep puffing and keep passing. Like, pass out, wake up, get back to puffing and passing. We gotta get your homework done. It's gonna be a test coming up soon, and we gotta smoke all this weed before the federal government shows up and tells us that it's theirs. Right? Fucking ridiculous. 2202. 1,444,000,000. Carry out Older Americans Act of 1965. Like, you see, this is it's just a constant, like, just referring back to these old acts, these acts that were passed in 1954, 1965, 1974, 1995, 2008, all this stuff. Just like, you guys couldn't just focus on one thing. You guys literally had to take this opportunity to shove everything under the sun in this deal. Like, you know what? I'm part of the civil disobedience crowd. So, they might show up and be like, fuck you. Like, oh, we're going to put you in jail. Well, all right. At least if everybody goes on the civil disobedience route, they can't put everybody in jail, right? Or else then they'd know they have a problem. The whole economy would shut down, which, you may think I'm a big part of the economy, but I'm a part of the economy. I'm a part of it. Doing work here. Having fun. Well, not really having fun. Not with this shit. I'd much rather be writing scripts and working on the animations. To be perfectly honest, but I said I would do this. And now I'm really questioning why the hell I thought I could sit down and do this. I thought it would be like done in no time, but we're going to be doing this in chunks. We're just going to do what we can when we can, get it done eventually. You know what I mean? Right. And C, invest in tech. Right? So, prevention and mitigation activities related to COVID-19 focused on addressing extended social isolation among older individuals, including activities for investments in technological equipment and solutions or other strategies aimed at alleviating negative health effects of social isolation. So what are they going to do? They're going to buy a bunch of tablets? They're going to get everybody a Disney Plus subscription? Like, they're going to get everybody, like, access to OnlyFans or some shit? Like, I mean, like, what are you going to do? You're going to buy a bunch of Apple iPads? You're going to buy a bunch of smartphones? Like, what do you mean? Like, how about letting them walk around outside? How about seeing their families? Like, yeah. All right. Section 2203. 14,990,000,000. My bad. I was about to say thousand. 14,990,000,000. Child care assistance for essential workers. right? 23,975,000,000 for grants, 35 million provide technical assistance, research, and administration costs. And that's just in this little thing here. 14 billion, 23 billion. Like, and like childcare assistance, right? They don't even really go into it that much. But it's mainly just carry out the Child Care and Development Block Grant of 1990. Oh, man. And no, I'm not going to be clicking on these links here. Like, I've had to read enough law for today. You know, getting very cynical over here. Not that I wasn't already a little pretty cynical. But this is pushing my limits. This is pushing my cynical limits. Quite frankly, I'm getting to the point where it's just like, okay. And section 2204, use of funds from section 2203. You see, they have this little section where they see like all these funds, and then child care stabilization. They got their definitions and their state reservations and subgrants, obligations, and their in general, personnel costs, rent, protective equipment, purchases of or updates to equipment and supplies to respond to the COVID-19, goods and services to maintain or resume child care service, mental health supports for children and employees. Like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Like, you really think, like, all that's even needed? Like, what kind of child care services do you guys use? Some expensive ass child care service. I mean, like, they're really thinking they're gonna do this for like every child in the country. That's literally what they're thinking. Anyway, section 2205, a nice $1 billion for the Head Start programs. I think the Head Start programs have something to do with schools, like it's education. I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry. I think I looked it up, but that was a while ago. Just in terms of Googling it. Section 2206, Family Violence Prevention and Services Act is amended. Right? Now, this is one of those big ones where they've amended it to permanently increase the amounts here. Right? 180 million to carry out sections 301 through 312 of that act. 18 million to carry out section 309. 2 million to carry out section 313. 1 million of which goes to Indian communities. 49,500,000 for culturally specific activities for sexual assault and domestic violence survivors. Now, I'm curious to know what they mean by culturally specific activities. I mean, does that mean like ping pong for Chinese survivors and dancing for like Indians? Like, what is that? Chess for Russian survivors? Like, what is it? What is that? Culturally specific. What the? Anyway, D1. Why did I write down D1? Is that what I meant for D1? Grants to support survivors. In general, in addition to amounts otherwise made available, there is appropriated out of any amounts not otherwise appropriated to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, $198 million for fiscal year 2021 to be available until expended to carry out this subsection. So it's going to cost $198 million to carry out this subsection. No, it's administrative costs, like $2,500,000 for the administrative costs. Oh wait, and then what is this? To transition rape crisis centers to virtual services. I got a little note there. What the heck is that? Oh right, it's under use of funds. Why do I have D1 instead of D2? Oh, whatever. Yeah, the Secretary, acting through the Director of Family Violence Prevention Services Program, shall assist rape crisis centers in transitioning to virtual services and meeting the emergency needs of survivors. That's a lot of money. $198 million. That's, I guess, one of those telehealth sort of things, where once again they're trying to pump money into these companies to increase the value of their investments. Oh yeah, $2,500,000 for administration costs. That's a common theme. Section 2207, Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment. $250 million to carry out the Child Abuse and Treatment Act. So it was already an act that was in place. I'm just putting more money towards it, or at least putting this amount of money towards it. I don't think it, ran out of money at any point in time, but that's what they're doing. Section 2208, LIHEAP. $4,500 million. Low Income Home Energy Assistance Act. Section 2209. $425 million. Cost increases from programs administered by Children and Family Administration that provide services to children. That's to pay for the cost increases to provide these services to children. Like, I'm sorry, but that is like, what the hell is going on? Like, what kind of services they provide to these kids? Section 2210, $852 million to increase living allowances of participants in national service programs. To award organizations prioritizing entities serving communities disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and utilizing culturally competent and multilingual strategies in the provision of services. Taking into account the diversity of communities and participants served by such entities, including racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, linguistic, or geographic diversity. Now, is taking into account another way of saying like discriminating on the basis of? Because if it is, this whole bill, I mean, at least this part needs to get changed, because we really shouldn't be discriminating on race. But they're taking it into account. Like, I mean, how do you think this would sound like if it was passed back in the 60s? I got some dead skin on my thumb. So get rid of that shit. Alright, wait. Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry. Oh my God. Section 2301. Alright, so now this basically gives the Secretary of Nutrition, I guess. I forget what secretary is, but it's the secretary of this program. Secretary of Health and Human Services. That's who it is. Right? It gives them the ability, like, where he increases the value of a cash value voucher under a qualified food package to less than or equal to $35. Now, what's interesting, what's curious to me is it says increases the value to less than or equal to $35. But this is basically just, the secretary gets to choose, make that discretion. And for this, they're, in order to increase the value of these things to less than or equal to $35, $490 million is appropriated. Actually, 2302, might be 2302. $390 million for outreach, innovation, program modernization to increase participation in programs. So, increasing participation in these food programs, in the Child Nutrition Act of 1966, in the WIC food packages, and, actually, trying to increase participation in something that most people wouldn't like to be on, that most people would rather not be on, in my opinion, but, they want to increase participation in it, which, I don't know, gives you an idea of where their minds are, focused and headed, where their ideas are going. And it's I get it, maybe there's people out there who, or would be in need of these programs, but, maybe not be aware of them, or may not know how to become involved in them, right, and that kind of stuff. And so those people should be found and whatnot. But I feel like this is one of those things that's been going on for such a long time that such individuals, or at least people know about it. Maybe they're just maybe pride's keeping them from doing it. Maybe there's people who need it. I'm just saying, it's just curious to me that they, want to spend that much money to increase availability or increase participation in the program, which, I feel like they were going to kind of spend that money to kind of prevent people from needing to participate in the program. But there's not really anything in here like that, except for the first section where they're buying all the food. Fuck me. Yeah. If there wasn't so much demand for the food from the federal government, then, maybe it wouldn't cost so much for the rest of us. Which, shit doesn't even cost that much to begin with. Unless, you're getting the packaged stuff, right? I'm talking lettuce. I'm not talking lettuce, spinach in terms of the packaged stuff, right? Because I find that eating actually healthy and cooking your own food is way more cost effective than going to McDonald's or these fast food restaurants. And so for the longest time I was hearing that argument where they can't afford to eat well. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to Whole Foods for their shit, but you can go to Kroger or Walmart. Lettuce is lettuce, chicken's chicken, steak is, well, okay, steak, I mean, steak is steak, beef is beef. But I'm guessing the steaks you get at Whole Foods may be a little better. I don't know. I can't cook steak anyway, so it always turns out the same for me when I try to cook it. But chicken's chicken. Chicken's all over the place too, and so it's just cheaper to cook your own food and stuff. And so it's well, they work all the time. They work so much and stuff like that. It's okay, yeah, I get that, and it's just more convenient to have somebody else cook the food for you. Excuse me. But once again, it's cheaper and it's a little more worry, and it's not cooking it doesn't necessarily take all that long. The thing that takes the most time is cleaning up afterwards. That's the thing that takes time. And that's the main reason why people, in my opinion, don't cook their own food, is because they don't want to have to clean up the pots and pans or clean up the dishes, right? So it's just heck. But it's definitely cheaper, it's definitely more cost effective, and it's definitely more nutritious. So, and it's definitely healthier. right? Like eating healthy isn't expensive. It's just not. It just takes more time, which you might consider, like if you were a lawyer, right? Then you'd be like, well, you know, I'm not going to spend my time doing this. I make more money an hour than I would, spending it on this food, right? Something like that. If you were like making a ton of money, then you don't care. But if you're not making much money, then you'd be like, I work my ass off all day anyway. Like what's cooking dinner, cooking a little food, cleaning a few dishes, you know? Yeah, maybe I just got my thinking all screwed up or not. But I make pizza. I make my own pizza. It's not too tough to clean up the pizza dough stuff afterwards. Heck, I just let shit soak in hot water and soap. That's mainly I let time do the work for me. I don't sit there scrubbing. Just let the hot water and soap do it. Like gee whiz. All right. Where are we at? Section 2303. The Secretary shall reimburse emergency shelters for meals and supplements to individuals who are not, 25 or over, or 25 and under, I guess is what it is, have not attained the age of 25, right? Who are not 25 plus, who are receiving assistance from such a emergency shelter, right? So, that's, I don't know if that's something, I guess that's something that's been going on, right? Section 319 of the Public Health Service Act. Yeah. Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act. Yeah. That's just kind of a thing that's been going on. What is this? Section 2304. Where are we at? Pandemic EBT program. Section 1101 of Families First Coronavirus Response Act. I just heard some shit in the garage. Probably just cats or raccoon or possums. I thought it was a possum. It's most likely cats. Of the program into summer. Okay, yeah. Section 1101 of Families First Coronavirus Response Act is amended. A. By striking during fiscal years 2020 and 2021 and inserting in any school year in which there is a public health emergency designation. So what they've done here is they've taken their Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which I'm guessing they passed sometime last year, and instead of making it for fiscal years 2020 and 21, they're just like in any school year in which there's a public health emergency designation. So let's just, keep this bill around in case we need it again. Right? It's amazing how the government looks at issues and it's like, let's treat the symptoms instead of doing like the preventative stuff. That's just what I get all the time. It's like, let's research the problem instead of actually fixing the problem. Let's keep the bill around because we may need it in the future because we're not too confident in our ability to keep anything from like this from happening again, which I get. But we've had such advancements in medicine. And to be honest, this wouldn't have happened in the first place if it weren't for a cover-up in a certain communist country, right? Instead of fixing that issue, it's, this is probably going to happen again because we're trying to push communism. Now, let me see. Where am I at now? Okay. Plus allows extension of the program into summer by 90 days. All right. So I'm guessing that's the school lunch kind of stuff. So that way kids can kind of be getting lunches from those schools 90 days into the summer. Right. Emergencies during summer. Yeah. 90 days covered summer period. Here's the Cobra continuation coverage thing. This is actually another one of those bills that we looked at very briefly. Right, this is the one that said 0% of the amount of premium, right? Such individuals shall be treated for purposes of any Cobra continuation provision as having paid the amount of such premium if such individual pays 15% of the amount. It used to be if such individual pays 0% of the amount of such premium. But then, somebody was like, that's ridiculous. It needs to be something. And so it's like, okay, 15%. All right. Oh, somebody's got a brain on them somewhere over there. Let's see. Right, yeah, instead of 0%, it's 15% of premium to continued coverage. Section 3001. This is a huge part. Just the Cobra continuation. Yes. Funding for COVID-19 vaccine activities at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Yeah, here's where we get into stuff that's pretty much just the same thing over and over again. $7 billion, $500 million to plan, prepare for, promote, distribute, administer, monitor, and track COVID-19 vaccines. Section 3002. $1 billion to strengthen vaccine confidence, provide information and education, and to improve rates of vaccination. To strengthen vaccine confidence in the United States, including its territories and possessions. Yeah, well, just wait for the government propaganda to be coming on the TV about the vaccine. It's safe. It's so good. Don't listen to these other things. It's like, yo, it's a flu thing. Right? If it's a vaccine that I got to take like once a year, I'm going to be a little wary of it. Right? If it's a vaccine where it's like, yo, you take this once and it's going to handle you for life, then, I'm going to have a little more confidence in it. And this argument about polio, like, well, vaccines work for polio. Yeah, well, polio is nothing like COVID-19. Polio is more like AIDS than it is like COVID-19 and the flu, which COVID-19 and the flu are very similar. But it's nothing like, the most diseases that have been, cured with vaccines. So, that argument's ridiculous. Like, you don't know shit about viruses and diseases then if you're sitting there being like, man, what are polio vaccines? That's work. It's like, well, look, I'm not saying all vaccines are shit. But clearly some vaccines have been shit. And if you refuse to acknowledge the shittiness of some vaccines, these are some of the same people who are going to sit there and be like, capitalism failed us. It's like, what the fuck kind of world are you fucking living in? Fucking, dude. Fucking assholes. Fucking lunatics. Anyway, section 3004. What we got here? $500 million. Evaluation of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. Facilitation of manufacturing. Facilitation of inspections. Review of devices. Oversight of supply chain. And mitigation of shortages. And to conduction of inspections. Yeah, as you can see, that they just got that all in one paragraph. Just related, it's all related materials to vaccines. Everything that I just mentioned there is related to vaccines. The devices, the inspections, the manufacturing, everything. Are diagnosed and covered by the Food and Drug Administration. I mean, it's just, Food and Drug Administration, that's their job, to kind of make sure these vaccines, are what they are. Okay, what do I got next? Section 3011. $46 billion. $46 billion So you implement a national evidence-based strategy for testing, contact tracing, surveillance, and mitigation with respect to SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19. To award grants or cooperative agreements with state, local, territorial public health departments to establish, expand, and sustain a public health workforce. All right, this is like a workforce of people, right? Public health workforce. Cover administrative costs for enhanced information technology, to get the mobile testing units out there, get personal equipment for the testing. I mean, it's just like, yeah, $46 billion for that. That's just a small section that's got a big impact. And I'm just, I saw surveillance, and I was just like, I don't trust you guys. I don't trust you guys. I doubt the Bernie Bros trust you too much. Section 3012, $1,750,000,000 to use genomic sequencing, which is just gene sequencing, which is just like, to see what's going on in genes, to look at genes and stuff. Set the boss. What the fuck now? I'm addicted to a new game. Oh, is it that Apex Legends game? Are you still playing that, or did you lose interest in that real quick? Right now, we're going through the American Rescue Plan. The one that's passed Congress. The one that I've heard has like a $1.9 trillion price tag on it. The one that is filled with all sorts of crap. It is filled with all kinds of crap, and all kinds of crap that's not even related, really. Like they just throw COVID-19 in there, and financial assistance aid, like student financial aid, like COVID-19, and this other stuff. It's just like, okay, I guess you're fooling quite a few people out there. But this is why we gotta read through this, because we don't want to be fooled. We don't want to be tricked. We don't want this. Section 312, right? What do I got here? Yeah. Surveillance and the genome sequencing. Section 3013, $750 million to combat diseases globally, including COVID-19. Right. To combat SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, and other emerging infectious diseases threats globally. Like, what's the World Health Organization for? What did we pay them for? Because they turned out to be useless. Anyway. Nearly done. Section 3021. $7,660,000,000. I'm guessing somebody originally had it at $6,660,000,000, and somebody was like, "Yo, don't do that. Like, that's not a good idea." It's like, well, what are we gonna do? I'm not gonna lower the price. Like, of course you're not gonna lower the price. Just raise it up by $1 billion, you idiot. Like, aha, yeah, I got you, man. I got you. Anyway, and this is to create a public health workforce. That's in addition to that money that was, grants to states and such, and local and tribal health departments to create and establish those other public health workforces. This is to create a whole new public health workforce. But this also does include the state, territorial, and local. So this is literally just another thing. It's pretty much the same thing, except they've got it in here like twice with a different amount. So it seems to be just something that they really gonna put on there. All right. In section 3022, a nice small $100 million to carry out section 2813 of Public Health Service Act. Oh my gosh, and that's all I've got for you for now. Next up is going to be Chapter 4, Public Health Investments. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Why did they have to call it the American Rescue Plan when what Americans are sitting there yeah, rescue me after you screwed me. It's let me push somebody into the water, and while they're trying to climb up out of the pool, keep kicking them back in until they're so tired and exhausted they can't fight anymore. And then I'm like, wait, let me rescue you. That's just torture. That's fucked. That's fucked. That's fucked. Well, I'm happy I live in Texas. But at the same time, I'm not sure if Texas is going to be able to provide jobs for the rest of America. Luckily, there's Florida and plenty of other states that didn't do what California and New York did. So, we may be able to absorb it. But not with this administration power, I don't think. Anyway, that's all I've got for you for now. See, that's basically where I left off here. Just chapter 4 is where I stopped writing notes, and I got kind of sick and tired of the whole thing and started really questioning my life choices. And then I went and I played some League. I caught up on watching podcasts and stuff because I really enjoy the LotusEaters.com podcast. And I really enjoy the Business Plays YouTube channel. Guys, they're really funny. Excuse me. Anyway, this stream will be posted to YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can catch me live on Twitch. That's where you will get me first and foremost. Yeah. This has been the American Rescue Plan. I'm Rick you always, and I'm super tired. So have a good night or a good day, whatever your time zone is. And thank you for following. Thank you for watching. And stay tuned for the rest of this giant pain in the ass. Peace out.